"Hey guys, tonight we move in with a stranger I found through Craigslist. It wasn't supposed to be forever, just a few months, until I saved enough to get my own place." The listing was vague but promising. Rent was stupid. Cheap utilities included a quiet neighborhood. Only one roommate. No pets. No parties. No weird vibes in the photos. Except for one thing. At the bottom of the ad in small gray text was this line: "Do not ask your roommate where he goes at night." I stared at that sentence for a long time before messaging the guy. It was probably a joke, right? Like some ironic meme reference or a leftover line he forgot to delete. I asked him about it in my first message and never got a reply to that part. But he sent the address, the move-in date, and said the room was mine if I wanted it. I was broke. I said yes. When I arrived, there was a key taped under the mailbox and a note on the kitchen counter. Just a single piece of paper with my name on it, and below that, "Your room is the one with the window. Rent due on the 1st. No signature, no roommate in sight. The apartment wasn't bad. Kind of old. Worn carpet. Cheap vertical blinds. But it smelled like someone had just cleaned lemon and ammonia. My room had a bed already in it, plus a nightstand, a desk, and a cracked lamp that leaned slightly left. There was a weird circular stain on the ceiling above the bed, but I didn't care. I was just grateful to have a door that locked and a roof that didn't leak. I didn't see the roommate that first day. His room was at the end of the hall. The door was pitch black. Flat, no trim, no knob, no peephole. I knocked lightly just to say hey, but there was no answer. I figured he was at work or asleep, or avoiding me. I didn't mind. I needed solitude. That night I unpacked, ordered Chinese, watched half a movie on my laptop, and passed out early. No weird dreams, no bad vibes, until the sound woke me up. It was soft at first, just the front door easing open. The hinges creaked like they hadn't been used in years. No footsteps, but I could feel the air shift, like the room exhaled. I didn't move, I just listened. Someone walked down the hallway. Slow, deliberate, one step every 2 or 3 seconds. I counted. 5, 6, 7. Then it stopped, right outside my door. I held my breath. The hallway light was still on, and it slipped in beneath the door, just a thin band of gold. I watched that light for any sign of shadow. Nothing moved. Eventually, the sound of fabric brushing against the walls picked up again. The footsteps faded. A door clicked shut. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I lay there listening to the radiator tick and the house creak, and my heart beat too hard in my chest. I told myself maybe it was just a quiet guy. Maybe he didn't want to wake me. Maybe he just kept odd hours. I told myself a lot of things. In the morning, everything was quiet. The front door was locked. The hallway was empty. But something had changed. There was an object on the coffee table in the living room. I hadn't put anything there. I hadn't seen it the night before. It was a pocket watch, old, brass, heavier than it looked. I picked it up slowly, half expecting it to burn me or whisper something. It didn't. It just ticked. But the ticking wasn't right. Too slow, too uneven. Like each tick was thinking about it first. I opened the lid. Inside there were faint scratches etched into the metal. It said this night never happened. I stared at it for a full minute, trying to make sense of what that could mean. Was it a joke? A warning? A threat? I set it down, backed away like it might explode, and went to the kitchen to make toast. Normal things. Safe things. I burned the first slice. Dropped the second. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. By noon, the watch was gone. No note. No sign of my roommate. No explanation. I told myself to forget it. I'd seen worse. Lived worse. But that night I locked my door tight, and I pushed the dresser in front of it just in case. The next few hours blurred. I remember standing in the shower, watching the steam curl up toward the ceiling, waiting for the hot water to run out. I kept thinking about the doll, her cracked eye, the missing tag, and the way she smelled like something burned a long time ago and never really went out. By afternoon, I was back on my laptop searching for anything. Old hauntings, Craigslist horror stories, missing persons in my zip code. I even searched the phrase, "Don't ask your roommate where he goes at night," thinking maybe someone else had posted about him. About this place, nothing. No hits, no related results. Just some Reddit threads about bad housemates and a BuzzFeed quiz about introverts. I don't know what I expected. An explanation, maybe. Something to ground this in reality. At 6:17 p.m., the power went out. No warning. No flicker. Just a sudden drop into silence. The light bulbs dimmed to black. The fridge stopped humming. The TV, even though it was off, let out a sharp pop like it had been holding in a breath for too long. I stood there waiting. The hallway stayed darker than it should have. No orange glow from the streetlights outside. No spill from neighboring windows. Just thick blackness like the walls had soaked up everything. That's when I noticed the smell. The kind of old metallic smell that only makes sense in basements or forgotten buildings. Mold copper wet stone. I followed it to the living room. There, resting neatly in the center of the coffee table, was a red velvet pouch. I hadn't heard the door. I hadn't heard anything. I opened the pouch with 2 fingers. Inside was a tooth. Human, probably. Yellowed, a bit of dried gum still clinging to the root. Next to it was a folded square of paper. It read, "You're not listening." I dropped it, backed away, locked myself in my room. I don't know how long I sat in the corner. Long enough for the dark outside to fade into early morning gray. Long enough for the street noise to return car doors, birds, distant buses. At some point I fell asleep. When I woke up, the pouch was gone. But the message wasn't. It had been rewritten across my bathroom mirror in something thick and red. "You will." I wiped it off with the towel, and the towel crumbled in my hands. The morning after the doll appeared, I woke up feeling like someone had been in my room. You know that weird tightness in your chest when you wake from a dream you don't remember, but your body still thinks it's in danger? That. I checked everything. The lock on the door was fine. My phone was on the nightstand where I left it. But my blanket had been pulled down neatly to my waist, and I never sleep like that. Ever. I didn't say anything. I just got up and went to make coffee. That's when I saw it. There, in the center of the kitchen table, was a stuffed rabbit. Taxidermied. Small, maybe a foot tall, with matted brown fur and tiny white paws folded like it was praying. One of its glass eyes was missing. The other looked directly at me. Not in a figurative way. It was actually pointed at me like someone had rotated it while I was asleep. I didn't touch it. I didn't even get close. It had a tag tied around its neck. A cardboard label like something you'd find in a flea market. The handwriting looked rushed, almost panicked. "Don't look at the moon." I didn't laugh. That kind of joke stopped being funny after the doll. I just stood there staring at it, feeling that same air pressure tension I'd been waking up with for the past few days. Like the whole apartment was holding its breath, like it was waiting to see what I'd do next. I went back into my room, locked the door, and texted a friend. Hey, question. You ever had a roommate who brings home stuff? No response. 15 minutes later, I checked again. The message had disappeared. Not just unread, gone, vanished from the thread entirely. When I went back to the kitchen, the rabbit was gone too. I don't mean it had been moved. I mean it was no longer in the apartment. Not on the table, not in the trash, not shoved in a cabinet. I looked in the hall. His door was open an inch, not wide, just enough to see darkness behind it. No light, no furniture. I couldn't even see the floor. I didn't step closer. That night I left every light in the apartment on. I sat in the living room until 2:30 a.m., telling myself I'd go to bed after he came back. That I just wanted to see what he brought home next. At 2:43 a.m. exactly, the door opened. He stepped in, soaked, like he'd climbed out of a lake. Water dripped off his hoodie and onto the wood floor, but he didn't seem cold, or even aware that he was wet. He wasn't carrying anything this time, but something was different. He stopped in the middle of the room and looked at me. First time he'd done that since we met. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. He raised one hand and pointed at me, slow, steady, and then walked into his room. The door shut. No sound, no splash. I didn't sleep that night. At some point I went to the bathroom and caught my reflection in the mirror. There was something in my eye. I leaned closer. A tiny piece of glass. Round, smooth, embedded just under the lid. I tried to blink it out. I couldn't. I swear it twitched. I rinsed it with water, rubbed at it. Finally, I reached in and pulled. There was nothing on my fingertip, just blood. And when I looked again, it was gone. No glass, no scratch, no redness. I stood there for 10 minutes, breathing through my teeth. In the morning, there was a paper tag on my pillow. Same handwriting. It's watching through you now. I didn't leave the apartment that day. I thought about it. Packed a backpack. Even made it halfway down the stairs. But something stopped me. Not fear exactly, more like a weight in my chest. Like the building itself didn't want me to go. And somehow I knew if I pushed through that front door, something would follow me. Or worse, something would stay behind. So I went back upstairs, locked the door, pushed a chair under the knob. It was stupid maybe, but it made me feel like I still had control. I spent the next hour going through my roommate's few visible belongings. Not to invade his privacy exactly, I just needed to understand what I was living with. The kitchen cabinet above the fridge had 2 boxes of cereal unopened, a bag of rice, nothing else. No spices, no plates, no signs of cooking. The fridge had one item, a mason jar unlabeled filled with something dark and thick. I didn't open it. In the hallway closet shoved in the back behind a broom, I found a rolled-up map. Old, yellowed, the kind printed on thick cloth instead of paper. The names weren't in English. They weren't in any language I recognized. But one of them looked like my street. Not spelled the same, not even phonetically. But I recognized the shape of the road, the curve, the intersections. Something had drawn a red X through the building I was standing in. I unrolled the rest of it and found a small tag pinned to the bottom corner. In the same handwriting from the watch. This isn't the first time. I sat on the couch for a while, staring at nothing. Then I heard something from his room. A knock. Not on my door, on his. 3 times. Slow. And then a voice. Female, soft. Open the door. I know you're in there. I stood up fast. My skin went cold. She knocked again. I stepped into the hallway. There was no one there. The knocking was coming from inside the room. But the voice, it sounded like it was coming from behind me. I turned around. Still no one. When I looked back, the door was open. Not wide, just cracked. Barely. Enough to see inside. It was empty. No bed, no walls. Just a darkness that felt wrong. Thick. Like it was pressing out, trying to spill into the hallway. And the cold. It hit me like a wave. Not just low temperature. It was deeper than that. Bone deep. Like the cold you feel when someone tells you a secret they shouldn't know. Then the door shut on its own. No slam, no gust. Just a soft, patient click. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed with my back to the wall and a knife from the kitchen in my lap. I kept checking the hallway through the crack under the door. The light stayed on. That's how I knew I was still awake. At exactly 2:43 a.m., my phone lit up. No ringtone, no vibration, just a blank screen. Then one word appeared. Again, I turned it off, removed the battery, left it on the floor. At 3:00 a.m., there was a knock. Not at my door, the front door. Then the hallway light flickered and went out. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I waited, counting my heartbeat. Then something spoke. It was my voice, from the living room, but twisted, slowed down, as if someone had recorded me and played it back through broken speakers. Why did you open it? I hadn't, but I couldn't answer. Whatever it was, it didn't need me to. It already knew. In the morning, the hallway was clean, light back on. Nothing out of place, except the doll. She was sitting in the kitchen sink, and this time both eyes were whole. I didn't touch the doll. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen just staring at her. She sat there like she belonged, arms folded in her lap, eyes straight ahead. Both of them. Whole now. No cracks, no chips. Just glossy porcelain, too clean, too perfect. She wasn't wet. Which was strange because the sink beneath her was full of water. And not clean water, cloudy with something oily floating on the surface. The drain was clogged. I could smell it from across the room, like old meat left out in the sun. I backed away. I didn't go in. I didn't make breakfast. I didn't even brush my teeth. I grabbed my backpack again and left the apartment. This time I made it outside. The street looked normal. People walking dogs, a woman jogging, a garbage truck a block away. For a few minutes, I actually believed the nightmare was contained inside. Like maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was cracking under stress. But then I saw the man, standing across the street by the stop sign, dressed in all gray. No facial expression, no phone, not even pretending to be doing something. Just staring at the building, not at me, at the building. I ducked behind a tree, waited. He didn't move. Eventually I circled the block, came up behind him, tried to see if he was homeless, or waiting for a bus, or doing anything human. But by the time I got there, he was gone. In his place was something else. A note pinned to the back of the stop sign with a single nail. Handwritten. Why did you leave her alone? I didn't take it. Didn't even touch it. I walked straight back to the apartment, and the second I stepped inside, I heard the water, still running in the kitchen. Except it wasn't the sink anymore. It was coming from behind the black door. I froze. It sounded like waves. Gentle at first, then harder. Like something pounding against metal. I stepped closer. The doorknob, still invisible, was there now. For the first time. Just a tarnished brass handle waiting. I didn't touch it. Instead, I went back to my room, grabbed the map I found, and tried to look at it again with fresh eyes. I spread it out across the floor. The streets were clearer now. The red X was larger, thicker, like it had been drawn twice, and the building next to ours, it had a red circle around it, with the words not yet scrawled over the roof. I didn't understand what I was looking at, not until I remembered the news from a few weeks ago. An old apartment on the next block had burned down. 4 units destroyed. 1 body never recovered. I Googled it, and there it was. The address, the picture, the same layout, the same windows, the same black door visible in the frame behind the fire trucks. I zoomed in. Something was watching from the glass. I shut the laptop. There was a knock, 3 times, but not at any door this time. From inside my closet, I stepped back, heart racing. The knob began to rattle. Slow, not forced, like someone was just letting me know they were in there. I picked up the knife again. I opened the door. There was nothing, just clothes, shoes, and a message written in the dust on the floorboards. You are inside now. That's when I realized I hadn't heard the city all day. No cars, no birds, no voices from neighbors, no mail being delivered. I rushed to the window, but there was nothing outside, just fog, white, endless, swirling up against the glass like waves. I turned to grab my phone. It was gone. In its place on my bed was the doll, smiling. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat had gone dry like I'd swallowed sand. I stood there staring at the doll, frozen halfway between fear and disbelief. She was different now. It wasn't just the smile, though, that was bad enough. Her face had shifted, the tilt of her head, the softness of her expression. Her hands were folded just like before, but this time they held something. My phone, screen dark, battery probably dead, or worse, on and recording. I stepped forward slowly, reached out. The second my fingers touched the porcelain, I heard it. A low hum, mechanical, familiar, ticking, like the pocket watch. I jerked my hand back and looked around the room. There was no watch on the table, nothing on the floor. But the sound grew louder, deeper, like it was echoing through the walls, passing behind me, inside me. And then it stopped. I snatched the phone from her grip and backed away. The screen lit up. There was a new message. Not a text, not a notification. Just a single line hovering in the middle of the screen in white text over black. 3 more. I didn't know what it meant. 3 more nights. 3 more objects. 3 more rules I was already breaking. The doll didn't answer. She just sat there on my pillow, smiling like she'd been waiting all along. I left the room, locked the door behind me, tried to breathe, tried to think. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I stayed in the living room that night, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the front door. The hallway light buzzed overhead, flickering every 10 seconds or so, like it was getting tired too. At 2:43 a.m. it began again. The front door creaked open. No one walked in, but the air changed, like pressure being sucked from a room. Then something stepped into view. It wasn't my roommate. It was something shaped like him. Same height, same clothes, same walk. But the face wasn't right. It was stretched, like skin over bone. But the bone didn't match. The eyes were too far apart, the mouth too thin. It didn't open the black door. It walked past it and into the kitchen. I heard the sound of the faucet turning on, but it didn't stop. It kept turning, The water gurgled, choked, then hissed like it was boiling. Steam filled the hallway. I smelled copper again. I stayed completely still. I should have moved, should have run, but I didn't. The thing stepped back into the hallway holding something. A jar, same as before, only this time it wasn't sealed. It placed it on the floor in front of my door, turned, and walked away. I heard the black door open. He went in. I waited 10 full minutes before I opened mine. The jar was still there. Inside was a single human tooth, floating in what looked like milk. There was a label on the lid. 2 more. I left it there. By morning it was gone. The hallway was clean. Again. Like nothing had happened. Except now the apartment felt smaller. The walls tighter. The hallway longer. Or maybe I was just unraveling. I tried calling my parents, my sister, even my boss. None of the calls connected. Every app on my phone crashed on opening. The only thing that worked was the camera. So I took a photo, just one, of the living room. I stared at it for a while, trying to see if anything looked different through the lens. And that's when I noticed something. There was a mirror in the photo, behind the couch. There was no mirror in the apartment. Not anymore. I deleted the photo. I looked up. The doll was back. This time she was sitting on the couch, arms empty, smile gone, and someone had scratched a new message into the wall above her in long, jagged letters. One more. I started pacing, back and forth across the living room from window to wall, door to door. I didn't speak. I didn't make a sound. I just moved. Like if I kept my body in motion, my brain wouldn't have time to collapse under the weight of what was happening. One more. That's what the message said. But one more what? One more object. One more night. One more mistake. The doll didn't answer. She never did. She sat there like a sentinel head tilted slightly now, almost mournful. Like she knew something I didn't. Like she pitied me. I covered her with a towel. It didn't help. The apartment was different now. I could feel it in the walls. Hear it in the way the floors groaned under my weight. There were new sounds at night. Wet breathing behind closed doors. Faint scratching under the carpet footsteps that didn't match mine. That afternoon I found the map again. Except I hadn't left it out. It was folded perfectly and placed on my pillow next to a single flower. Wilted. Blackened. Its petals crumbled when I picked it up. The map had changed. There were no streets now. Only a large, sprawling mass of rooms and corridors. A layout, maybe. Like a floor plan. But warped. Non-Euclidean, if that's the right word. Nothing lined up. Stairs went sideways. Rooms looped into themselves. In the center was a single word in blood-red ink. You. I closed it. Burned it in the kitchen sink. But when I returned to my room, it was on my desk again. This time the center was labeled not you. I didn't sleep. Around 2:40 a.m. I got ready. Sat on the couch, waiting. I don't know what I was expecting. Another jar. A new artifact. But this time was different. At 2:43 the lights went out. All of them. Instantly. No flicker. The hum of the refrigerator died. The buzz of the hallway bulb silenced. Darkness filled the apartment like water. And in the silence I heard the door open. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Something entered. I heard it settle in the chair across from me. The air changed. Heavy. Humid. Then it spoke. Not aloud. Inside my head. You invited us. I couldn't speak. My jaw locked. My chest clenched. The voice continued. You watched. You listened. You obeyed. You stayed. I wanted to ask what it wanted. It answered anyway. We need a door. You will open. Then the pressure lifted. The lights flickered back on. The chair was empty. But the black door, wide open. I stood, slowly, walked toward it. It looked like a hallway now, longer than it should have been. Lit by flickering bulbs, one every 20 feet or so. The air smelled like rust and lilacs. I stepped inside. My foot made no sound. I turned back. The door was gone. Behind me now was a mirror. I walked forward. The floor felt soft, like walking on memory foam soaked in water. I passed a door on my right. No handle, just a symbol etched into the wood, an eye stitched shut. The second door had a name scratched into it, my name. But the handwriting wasn't mine. I kept walking. The hallway bent, curved, shifted. Then I saw it. The room. Familiar. It was my apartment, or a copy of it. Except it was empty. No furniture, no doll, no lights. Just one item in the center of the room. A coffin. Wooden, polished, closed. I walked to it slowly, knelt beside it, and carved into the lid were 3 words. Welcome, one more. I didn't open the coffin right away. I sat beside it for what could have been hours. Time didn't work normally here. My watch had stopped ticking the moment I entered the hallway. My phone wouldn't turn on, and the overhead lights flickered in no discernible pattern, like they were waiting for me to do something before deciding how to behave. The coffin was warm to the touch. That more than anything scared me. The words carved into the lid weren't deep. They looked rushed, uneven, like someone had scratched them in with a key or a broken nail. Welcome, one more. I ran my fingers over the groove of the final letter. The wood flaked beneath my touch. Whatever finish had once made it glossy had long since faded. There was something underneath the varnish smudges. Fingerprints or claw marks. I stood, backed away, circled the room. There were no walls. Not really. Just endless blackness beyond the edge of the floorboards, like the room floated in a void. I tried to trace where I'd entered, but the door was gone. The mirror, too. Everything had shifted behind me. The air started to hum again. Low, faint, like a heartbeat buried under cement. I turned back to the coffin. It was open. Not wide, just a crack. Enough to see inside. It was empty. Or at least I thought it was until I stepped closer and saw me. Not moving, not breathing, not even blinking. Just lying there with my eyes closed, hands folded neatly over my chest, dressed in the same clothes I was wearing now. I staggered back, nearly tripping over the warped floorboards. The other me didn't move, but something else did. A shadow on the wall. Impossible because there were no light sources behind me. It rippled like oil in water, stretching up the far side of the room, head bent too far forward, arms too long. And then in my own voice it whispered, "Get in. You have to take your turn." I shook my head, backed away. "No," I said out loud. "I didn't agree to this." The thing didn't answer. Instead, the door behind me reappeared. Only it wasn't the black door from the apartment. It was red, old, weathered, covered in scratch marks. It creaked open before I touched it. Inside was a hallway, but not like the one I came from. This one was lined with mirrors, tall ones, dozens of them, each one showing me at different moments, sleeping, blinking, eating, watching my own reflection twist ever so slightly behind me. In one, I wasn't there at all. Just an empty room with the camera pointed at the door. I didn't want to walk through, but I didn't want to turn back either. So I walked. As I moved down the hall, the mirrors flickered. They changed. The images sped up, days flipping past in seconds. I saw the doll on the couch. I saw the rabbit on the kitchen floor. I saw the jar of teeth in the bathroom sink. And then I saw something new. A hand pale and thin reaching out from behind me in the reflection. I spun. No one. But the mirror still showed the hand. Closer now. I ran. The hallway didn't end. It just narrowed. Until I had to press against the mirrors on either side just to squeeze through. And then suddenly I was back in the apartment. Or a version of it. The furniture was the same. The smell familiar. But the colors were wrong. Too faded. Like looking at a memory left out in the sun. The doll sat on the couch again. Only this time she wasn't alone. There was someone next to her. My roommate. Or someone wearing his shape. He looked up. His eyes were gone. In their place were two glass eyes, perfectly round, cold, reflective. He opened his mouth, and from inside came the sound of ticking. Faster, louder, frantic. He held up a note. I didn't take it, but I read the words. This is the last one. Then the doll turned her head toward me and smiled. I couldn't stay in that room. Not with both of them staring at me, him with those blank glass eyes, her with that knowing little grin. The air in the apartment was too still, like everything was holding its breath. I backed into the hallway and slammed the door shut behind me. Only, it wasn't the same hallway. It twisted slightly to the left, bending in ways that made no architectural sense. The floor sloped upward like I was in an old funhouse, but the lights overhead were dimmer now, yellowed like teeth. There were doors lining the walls. Some were open, some closed, but every single one had a label. Not numbers, names. I read a few as I passed. See, Dorsey M. Akhtar A. Kinley. People I'd never heard of. Until one stopped me in my tracks. Fern, my sister's name. I reached for the doorknob. It was warm. Too warm. And as soon as I touched it, I heard her voice. Clear as day. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I froze. Because those were the exact words she'd said to me 2 weeks ago when I called her late one night after a nightmare. I hadn't told her what it was about. I just needed to hear someone familiar. Now she was here. No, that wasn't possible. I let go of the knob, kept walking. Further down the hall, the names started changing. I saw mine again. Twice. Once scratched into the door. Once painted over another name. The ticking followed me here too. Not as loud as before, but steadier. Like it was counting something down. I started to run. The hallway went on forever. Every time I turned a corner, it bent back in on itself. Rooms repeated. Names reshuffled. The doll appeared at the end of the corridor, once standing on her own feet this time. Watching. I blinked. She vanished. Eventually, I slammed open a random door and stepped inside. Darkness, but not empty. I was back in my own room. Or a version of it. The same desk, same bed, same water stain on the ceiling. Except the desk had something new. A piece of paper, a drawing. It showed the apartment from above. Bird's eye view. One room was shaded black, and written in the corner was a message. That's where he comes from. I turned around expecting someone to be behind me. Nothing. But the black door across the hall, it was wide open again. Inside I saw myself, standing, staring back at me. Not blinking, not breathing, just waiting. Then he raised his hand and pointed down to the floor. I looked, and there burned into the carpet beneath my feet was a symbol. A circle, a line through it. 2 eyes above. A door. That's what it meant. I was the door. Not guarding it, not using it, becoming it. The realization hit so fast I nearly fell backward. I wasn't surviving this. I wasn't escaping. I was changing, and they were just waiting for me to finish. I locked myself in the bathroom. It was the only room left that still felt like mine. The mirror over the sink was cracked from the heat of a curling iron. I dropped months ago, but at least it still showed me. Or I thought it did. I kept checking it every few minutes, like I expected to see someone else looking back. No ticking in here, no whispers behind the walls, just silence. I sat with my back against the tub, holding the knife again. Useless, I knew, but it gave me something to grip, something to focus on. Then I heard it, a knock, but not from the hallway. From inside the bathroom cabinet, 3 soft taps, measured, like they'd practiced. I didn't move. Then a voice, muffled, low, mine. Let me out. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but where would I go? There was nowhere left to go. I backed into the corner, the knife clenched in shaking hands. The cabinet door began to creak open on its own. Just a sliver, just enough to see darkness behind it. Darkness that pulsed. The mirror flickered. I looked up and saw myself, but I wasn't moving. My reflection stood still, hands by its sides, eyes locked onto mine. Then it smiled. The mirror cracked further. A spider web of fractures spread across the surface, and in the blink of an eye, the reflection stepped forward out of sync with me. It reached for the glass, touched it, and suddenly there were words scratched into the glass. You belong here. I looked down. My phone had returned, lying on the floor between my feet. The screen lit up with a countdown. 000300. 3 minutes. Below it, final offering. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew where I had to go. Back to the black door. Back to the thing that wore my face. I opened the bathroom door slowly, the hallway now humming like it was alive. Lights flickering rhythmically, floor vibrating beneath my feet. The black door stood open. My double was waiting. Still, silent. Behind him, the room had changed. Now it was a long hallway filled with mirrors on both sides, just like before. But this time the mirrors all showed me different versions. Me laughing, me crying, me asleep, me screaming, and one of them me smiling while I held the doll. I walked past him. He didn't move, didn't blink, just followed behind me like a shadow with weight. We walked the entire hallway together. The mirrors dimmed as we passed them, until we reached the end. A door, white, perfectly clean. No scratches, no locks. Just one phrase etched into the center. Give it up. I turned around. He was gone. The hallway behind me was empty. I opened the door. Inside was a chair, and on the chair my backpack. I picked it up. It was heavier than I remembered. Inside the rabbit, the doll, the jar, the watch, the note, the tooth, all the things he had brought home. They were mine now, the backpack whispered. It ticked. It throbbed in my arms. I understood. The apartment wasn't a home. It was a delivery system. It gave you time. Then it gave you weight. Then it gave you purpose. And when it was done, it gave you away. I was the final offering. The door behind me closed, and everything went dark. I opened my eyes. Still dark, but not empty. Something was moving in the room with me. Not walking, circling, brushing against the walls. I could hear it breathe. A slow, careful rhythm, like it was waiting for me to realize it was there. I tried to stand, but my limbs felt heavy. Not sore, just detached. Like they were mine in name only. And then I heard a familiar sound. Ticking. Not from the watch. From inside my chest. Each beat of my heart came with a soft, mechanical click. My breath rattled. My skin felt too tight. I stumbled forward. My hands found the wall. It was soft, warm, breathing. The room was alive, pulsing. Something shifted in front of me, and a door opened. Not one I could see, just the idea of one. The space changed. The air thinned. A voice whispered, "You've been carried far enough." I didn't know what it meant, but I stepped through, and suddenly I was in the apartment again. Only this time, I was watching from the corner of the ceiling. My body moved through the living room, picking up the pocket watch, smiling at the doll, tossing the rabbit onto the couch. I wasn't in control. I wasn't inside. I was part of the room, the air, the weight, the door. I tried to scream, but all that came out was silence. Then I saw him, my replacement, standing at the threshold, holding a backpack, looking confused, hopeful, tired. The door creaked shut behind him, and I knew the cycle had started over. I watched him explore. The new tenant, the new me. He moved like I had, cautious, skeptical, trying to play it cool while the apartment introduced itself. He opened kitchen cabinets, flipped the light switch in the bathroom a few times, stared at the black door without getting too close. He didn't hear me. I don't think he even sensed me. I was part of the air now, part of the walls, the silence. The apartment was quiet, patient, like a predator letting its prey settle in. It started with the pocket watch, of course. I saw it on the coffee table the next morning. Same brass casing, same uneven tick. He picked it up and flipped it open like I had. Flinched at the message etched inside. "This night never happened." He set it down fast, looked around. Didn't see anything. Not yet. Later that night, the doll appeared on the couch, perched in her usual spot. Cracked eye, folded hands, faint smell of burnt cotton. He didn't touch her. Smart. But he didn't leave either. That was the first choice. The silent contract. You see the first object, and if you stay past that, you're part of it. The apartment learns you, prepares for you. Each thing he found came quicker than it had for me. The rabbit, the jar, the folded note under his pillow. I watched him unravel from the corners. He paced like I had, tried calling people who didn't answer. Left the apartment and came back more confused than before. Then came the night he followed the rules perfectly. He didn't knock. He didn't ask. He didn't touch the doll. But the black door still opened. It always does. It waited until 2:43 a.m., right on cue. He heard something inside. A voice his own telling him not to be afraid. He didn't scream. He walked toward it like he knew what was coming. I watched the moment he crossed over. That was when I felt it. The shift, the pressure, like something was releasing. And something else was coiling tighter. The door closed behind him, but I stayed where I was. I didn't follow. Instead, the hallway stretched in reverse. Mirrors reappeared. All of them blank now. No reflections, only darkness behind the glass. That's when I understood. I wasn't just an echo anymore. I was a placeholder. The one who watches. The one who records. The one who whispers when they need just a little more convincing. I didn't get to leave. But I wasn't nothing. That mattered. At least a little. The apartment lives because we keep it fed. And now it was hungry again. Somewhere inside, my replacement was unpacking his bag, finding the next piece, adding it to the collection. he would last longer than me. He was quieter, calmer. He followed the rules. But eventually, he would be the one watching, and someone else would answer the ad. Time doesn't pass here the way it used to. Days aren't days. Nights aren't nights. There's no sun, no clocks, no noise from the outside world. Just soft lights, mechanical ticking, and the constant hum of something alive under the floorboards. The apartment never sleeps. It waits. Sometimes I forget what I looked like. My own face blurs in memory, replaced by the newer ones that come through the door. I try to hold on to their names instead, just to feel human. The latest one calls himself Tom. He's older than the last, early 40s maybe. Quiet type. Brought 3 suitcases and a guitar he never plays. He doesn't talk to himself, doesn't call anyone. But I know he's afraid. The way he sits at the edge of the bed, like he's waiting for someone to come take it away. The way he avoids the hallway after midnight. Smart, but not smart enough. The doll appeared on his second night. Not on the couch this time. In his bed, tucked under the blanket. He stood staring at her for an hour. Didn't move. Didn't touch her. He just stood in the doorway and watched as her head slowly turned to face him. I could feel the fear radiating from him. Not panic, not dread. Resignation. Like he'd seen something like this before. Maybe he had. Some tenants come pre-broken. They don't need the full cycle. Just a nudge. That night he whispered something before he fell asleep. I know what I'm for. I didn't understand what he meant until the next morning. The rabbit never appeared. Neither did the jar, or the tooth, or the map. Instead, there was a tape recorder on the kitchen table. Old, heavy, like something from the 70s. No note, just a single red button already pressed in. Recording. I leaned in close, not that I have ears anymore, and listened. It played nothing. Then suddenly his voice, clear, calm, like he was reading a script. Whoever's listening, don't try to fight it. It doesn't want you to win, just to continue. You're not the first. You won't be the last. It needs a witness. That's the only way it breathes. You feed it with fear, but you anchor it with memory. So don't forget, that's the only thing you can still do. Remember. Then silence again. He left the recorder running. He knew what that would do. The apartment feeds on voices, echoes, repeats, traps. Now it had one more. A new loop. By evening he was gone. No body. No sign of struggle. Just the black door standing open and the faint scent of firewood. I waited for another to come, and another did. Young this time. College kid. Hoodie earbuds, face buried in his phone. Probably thought the rent was too good to be true. Probably didn't even read the fine print. He didn't even look up when he crossed the threshold. I watched the door shut behind him, and the watch appeared again. Just like that. Reset. He picked it up, pressed the lid open. He didn't flinch. Just turned his head, slowly looked straight at the mirror in the hallway and smiled. It wasn't his smile. It was mine. I don't know how many have come through now. Maybe 8, maybe 20, maybe more. I stopped keeping count after the one with the missing fingers. She never screamed, not once. Not when the doll moved. Not when the black door opened in the middle of the day. Not even when she found the jar on her pillow and it started whispering her name. She just sat in the bathtub for 12 hours and hummed softly until the lights flickered red and she vanished. They all vanish, and each time a little more of me vanishes too. I used to wonder if I could escape. If there was a pattern, a puzzle, a trick I hadn't noticed. If I followed the rules backward, Could I find the beginning? But there is no beginning here. Only middles, only repetitions. The apartment rearranges itself now, subtly. I'll look away for a moment, and the hallway has an extra bend. The bathroom mirror is oval instead of rectangular. Sometimes there are voices behind the drywall whispering new names I haven't heard yet, maybe future tenants. Maybe past ones still stuck somewhere in the pipes. Last week I found a notebook on the kitchen table. I hadn't seen it appear. I don't think anyone brought it in. It was old. Hand-stitched binding. Pages yellowed at the corners. Inside were journal entries, written in dozens of different hands. Some neat, some frantic. Some half-erased, smudged with what might have been blood or coffee or both. They all began the same way. I thought I could leave, and they all ended with the same final word. Welcome. I read them for hours. I felt them claw at something inside me, something I thought was gone. Memory, remorse, the idea of myself. Then I found one entry dated only a week before I moved in. The handwriting was mine. Perfect match. I don't remember writing it, but I remember what it said. If you're reading this, you're already part of it. Don't waste time looking for logic. There is none. Don't beg for mercy. It doesn't understand that. And don't trust the mirrors. Not ever. They lie, but they never blink. I flipped the page. The last thing I'd written was, "When the mirror smiles first, you've already lost." And of course, it had already happened. Twice. The next day, the doll returned. But this time, she was in my room. She wasn't sitting. She was standing, at the foot of the bed. No tag, no note, no explanation. Just standing there, arms limp, head slightly tilted. I watched her for what felt like an hour, and then her mouth opened. Just a crack, and she whispered. Not long now. I didn't respond. What was there to say? It was already happening. My name has begun to fade from the walls. I used to see it written in dust, reflected in glass, scratched into wood. Now it's just gone. Sometimes I think I hear my name on someone else's lips. One of the new ones walking down the hallway, one of the voices repeating from a speaker in the black room. But when I turn, it's not for me anymore. It's never for me anymore. I started noticing the cracks about a week ago. Not in the walls, those are long gone, folded into impossible angles and distances that change when you're not looking. Not in the ceiling either, though sometimes it breathes. The cracks were in me. Little things at first. I'd think a thought, and hear it echo 2 seconds later, out loud in my own voice, but from behind me. I'd blink and forget what day it was, though time doesn't really exist here anymore. I started feeling like I was watching myself from somewhere just outside my skin. And then the mirror smiled again. Not the doll, not the roommate, the mirror. I didn't move. It smiled wider. I don't know how long I stood there before I realized I was smiling too. That's when I really knew I wasn't just a witness anymore. I was becoming something else. Something the apartment needed. I can feel it when the new ones come in. Their footsteps vibrate through the floors. Their breath fogs up the windows for the first few hours. They try to keep the lights on. They think they can reason with what's happening. Some of them pray. That's the saddest part. One tenant I never got his name burned sage every morning and taped crosses to the walls. The doll still appeared just behind him every time he blinked. On day 4, he taped a piece of paper to the mirror. It said in thick marker, "You don't own me." The next morning, the message had changed. Same paper, same marker. "We will." I try to warn them sometimes. Whisper through the vents. Rattle doorknobs at the right moment. Leave messages scratched faintly on the mirror's edge. but the apartment erases them eventually. It lets me pretend I'm helping, so I stay calm. That's part of the cycle too. It lets you feel useful until it doesn't need you anymore. And then you change. You become the thing that leaves the jar, or tucks the doll beneath the blanket, or plants the phrase in their dreams. Sometimes the mirror shows me things from before. I don't know if they're real memories or just fabrications meant to pacify me. My old apartment, my sister's voice, the lake house I visited once when I was a kid. But they flicker. Glitch. The lake is too still. My sister's voice loops the same sentence. The walls of the old apartment ripple like heat waves. The apartment is rewriting everything. It doesn't just feed on your body. It eats your context. And once it's done digesting, you're just another story it tells. There are stories in here, you know. Not just me. Not just the tenants. Stories trapped in the furniture. In the air. In the buzzing of the lights and the smell of rain that never falls. It recites them at night, over and over. Some in voices I recognize. Others in languages that aren't spoken anywhere anymore. One night I heard my own story told back to me, but wrong. Different name, different city, same ending. The door opens. You step through. You never come out. The backpack is still waiting on the chair in the room with no corners. The one with the white door and the word sacrifice written backward across the floor. Sometimes I wonder what happens if someone refuses. What if they burn the doll? What if they break the jar? What if they never open the black door? But that's the trick, isn't it? You already have. You open it the moment you notice it. The apartment isn't a place. It's a question. And once you ask it, you can't unask. Last night, someone new arrived. I felt it before I saw it. The pressure changed. The hallway grew shorter. The light steadied for the first time in days. That's how it prepares by pretending to be normal. She was young. 20s, maybe. Moved in with just a duffel bag and a cat carrier. The cat refused to come out. It hissed at the corners. Stared at the black door for 10 solid minutes before she even noticed. She thought it was just being weird. She set up her room, unpacked books, hung a photo of a beach I don't think exists anymore. She didn't seem scared, just tired. I could feel the apartment watching her, testing, waiting. That night she found the doll. Not in the living room, not in her bed, in the fridge, propped up between a bag of grapes and a bottle of almond milk. One eye cracked, dress soaked. She screamed. First one in a long time to do that. She slammed the fridge shut, left it that way. I don't blame her. But it was already too late. The doll reappeared in the microwave the next morning, then in the cat's litter box, then in her shoes. Each time she froze for longer. You can't bargain with it. You can't hide from it. You can only delay the story it already started writing. That night she whispered a prayer, not to be saved, but to be remembered. And I heard it. From wherever I am now, between the walls, beneath the lights, behind the mirrors, I heard it. It stirred something in me. Something I thought I didn't have anymore. Hope that maybe this time the story could end differently. But hope doesn't last long here. The black door creaked open at 2:43 a.m. Same as always. She didn't go to it. But something came through anyway. The lights went red, and I felt the apartment breathe in, like it was preparing to speak or scream. And then everything went still. The mirror stopped flickering. The ticking paused. The hallway sealed itself. And in that moment I saw myself again, standing in the doorway, watching, waiting, becoming. And I finally understood. The apartment never wanted to trap us. It wanted to become us. It wanted to wear us. To walk out into the world in our skin, with our memories, with our names. And maybe it already had. Maybe it was doing it now. Maybe this story you're listening to, it isn't just a story. Maybe it's the apartment's first step. Through you. But for now, everything is quiet again. The hallway has gone still. The mirrors have dimmed. And the walls no longer whisper. You lie back in your bed, feeling the last few threads of this tale wrap themselves around you. The sound of the ticking fades, replaced by the soft hush of your breath in the dark. The doll won't visit tonight. Not unless you invite her. And that door you keep glancing at in your hallway, the one you swear used to be just a closet. Don't worry. It's probably nothing. Probably. Let your eyes drift closed. Let the images of that strange apartment soften into dream stuff. You are safe. For now. Just remember, if something knocks, don't answer. If the ticking starts again, don't follow it. And if the mirror ever smiles first, it's already too late. Sweet dreams.